Yeah, I mean, the security data economics of a SIEM is fundamentally broken, Chris, so and we have seen it real world where we have had companies approach us to say, and they're like, my security program is fundamentally frozen. I can't afford to put any more data into my SIEM. This problem is only going to get worse. We've just talked about the impact of AI on security operations, but let's just zoom out for a second and talk about the impact of AI on business as a whole. So, 2025, we're expecting around about 187 zettabytes of data to be produced, adopted, and consumed in the world. For context, if 1 byte equaled 1 grain of rice, you could fill the whole sort of Pacific Ocean with 1 zettabyte worth of data, which is actually mental when you think about it, right? So that's what, when people say, oh, you're trying to find a needle in like a haystack, that's fundamentally what we mean. And so that problem is getting worse. The impact of that on the SIEM industry is, well, you get charged on a per gig basis of ingest. Now, this is where it begins to get interesting, because the SIEM vendors will charge you on a per gig ingest fee. But what they don't mention is the relative level of compression that's applied to that data when it's stored. They judge it on the pre-compressed ingestion amount. Now, for anyone that works in databases, like most databases will be able to compress data to like a certain degree or other. So Custo, which is the backend database in Sentinel, for example, around about 6x compression. SenseOn Security Data Lakehouse, you're talking around about a 20x compression that we apply on a per column basis of the data going into that lakehouse. So straight away, you can see the benefit of being able to just compress the data better. And of course, if you've got that data well organized, you can sort of design it with that in mind in advance. The second thing, uplift in terms of efficiency that the data lakehouse allows us to do is, again, we use a backend columnar database that was specifically designed for doing like very high levels of ingest, high volume ingest, as well as analytics. But what we've also been able to crack is the ability to virtualize tables onto cheap storage, such as S3 or Azure Block Storage, and still run analytics on that data. So it allows us to still analyze data, but as opposed to having it on, much more expensive SSDs, which we do for some types of analytics. For broader behavioral-based, longer-term analytics, you can actually just like virtualize it on this much cheaper storage. So that's quite technical and in the weeds, but those two things in and of itself, and there's a load of other stuff, like gives you like huge economic benefits and allows you to basically overcome the SIEM data tax, i.e. the more data you take in, the higher the sort of tax bill that you're going to pay. We've got to break that model in the industry, because it's like we're working against each other, right? We're not being supportive to the people trying to protect the organizations when you apply that type of pricing model.